biblical times about their traditional laws. This body of Jewish wise men have created 7 universal Noahide laws that depict the Gentiles as lesser than Jews. And she goes to talk about other things. So basically, what's the deal with this Noahide law and it possibly being adopted by government?
First of all, we need to tell you, Vaughn, it looks like the Pharisees are still with us today because of the formation of the Sanhedrin. Modern Judaism is ancient Phariseeism.
Right, they never left.
They never left. I mean, it's the very same system. And so, it's not because the Sanhedrin is back. In this body, the Sanhedrin today did not come up with these 7 Noahide laws. As a matter of fact, it was Maimonides that more or less codified these particular things. And it's a rabbinic interpretation of what they think Gentiles should do.
To be righteous.
To be righteous. And then it goes on here, Chaim. You have to read the next part because this is the thing we really need to correct here, okay?
Okay.
I've known about
the 7 Noahide laws in the United States that were passed and then announced by President George H.W. Bush in 1991. But until recently, I have never delved into reading them. It is my understanding that these laws will be the new religion of the New World Order for the purpose of governing.
Okay, all right. First of all, George Bush, nobody passed the Noahide laws. I keep hearing this, and it's nonsense out there. And it's gotten a life of its own. See, in Congress, they will pass a resolution. And this is what we're talking about, resolution. And these resolutions are for when somebody has a birthday.
They're ceremonial.
It's ceremonial stuff. It's most of it is, it's not nonsense. I mean, it
honoring groups.
Right. It honors people. Yeah, it's not nonsense. That would be completely wrong to say that. I want to read.
It's something will definitely register as the strangest thing you will hear me say tonight.
I think it's great.
Jews for Jesus and the similar organizations are responsible in large measure for the massive amount of conversion to Judaism and the B'nai Noach movement. As it turns out, anybody who knows anything knows that the vast majority of people who are converting to Judaism or become B'nai Noach come from the evangelical movement that is premillennial dispensationalist, that is messianic, that is Jews for Jesus. But what happens is, Utsu Eitza V'Sufo, Dabru Dova V'Lo Yokum, Ki Umanu Kel. It's a verse from Isaiah chapter 8. And that is, they planned against us a big plot to convert the Jews to Christianity. They gathered in Switzerland and Thailand to try to convert us all. But what happened? It sparked a tremendous interest among all these Christians, whether they're Jewish or not Jewish, and going, okay, we have to convert Jews, you have to learn more about Jews and use Jewish lingo, and Yeshua HaMashiach, and all this stuff. And then they started bringing proofs of Isaiah 53 from rabbinic literature. So they started studying our Talmudic text. And what happened was, they started going, I like to say, they started learning Hebrew. That means these Christians would never learn Hebrew, except it's this group. You don't have Greek Orthodox kids learning Hebrew, but the evangelicals are like learning Hebrew, learning things about Judaism, and they're very curious, and they're adopting things. They're adopting things that are not even biblical, that are rabbinic traditions. They adopted it flying all over the place.
Have you ever heard about the Noahide laws? Well, I learned about them as a Jewish man growing up and then talking to the rabbis as a Jewish follower of Jesus. And they said, look, for the Goyim, for the nations, for the Gentiles, there's 7 laws they need to follow. There are laws against blasphemy, laws against idolatry, cursing God, laws against theft and murder and adultery, and laws to establish courts of justice, and even one dietary law, not to eat the limb of a live animal, and things like that. So the Noahide laws, that's for the Gentiles. Now, where do they get them from? Well, the rabbis derive them partly from Genesis 2, the commands from God to Adam, and partly from Genesis 9. Most you could find plainly in the biblical text, and we just would affirm, you shouldn't commit adultery, you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't blaspheme God, etc. All right, you should establish courts of law, that's all good. But it's by rabbinic interpretation that they're drawn from Genesis 2, Genesis 9. Let's take a look in Genesis 9 itself, and you'll see where some of these laws come from. Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. So that's what God told Noah in the book of Genesis after the flood. All right, God gave that word to Noah. after the flood, saying if someone murders, then they will be put to death. You take a human life, you forfeit a human life because human beings are created in the image of God. They're different than the animals which we can kill to eat. No, you take a human life, you forfeit a life because that person is made in the image of God. The other laws the rabbis derived from rabbinic exegesis, rabbinic interpretation from those chapters, they're not clearly found there. But there is a myth circulating today. It is a myth, and I want to shout it from the rooftops that it's a myth, that religious Jews are working with various world governments to impose the Noahide laws, at which point they will say Christians are idolaters, Christians are idol worshippers because they believe in the Trinity and believe Jesus is God, and based on the Noahide laws, they should be put to death, so that religious Jews working with world governments will have Christians put to death under the Noahide laws. Forget that. It's nonsense. Christians are being put to death every day for their faith. And yes, religious Jews oppose the gospel of Jesus, especially going to Jewish people specifically. And on top of that, there are some religious Jews, there's a debate, who believe that Christians are idol worshippers because of the Trinity, and others say, no, it's acceptable for Gentiles. But listen, do not believe the myth that is circulating like wildfire on the internet, that Jewish groups are working with world governments to impose the Noahide laws with the goal then of establishing them so that Christians will be beheaded as idolaters. Forget it. That is nonsense. That is false. It is not to be believed, but it's provoking people to fear. It's not part of what Noahide practitioners believe.
The Noahide laws, or by them keeping the laws. But what happens is this.
Biblical times about their traditional laws. This body of Jewish wise men have created.
And going, okay, we have to go to Jersey, you have to learn more about Jews and use Jewish lingo and Yeshua HaMashiach and all this stuff. And then they started bringing proofs to Isaiah 53 from rabbinic literature. So they started studying our Talmudic text. And what happened was they started going, oh, I like to say, they started learning Hebrew. That means these Christians would never learn Hebrew, except it's this group. You don't have Greek Orthodox kids learning Hebrew, but the evangelicals are like learning Hebrew, learning things about Judaism, and they're very curious, and they're adopting things. They're adopting things that are not even biblical, that are rabbinic traditions. The
Noahide laws, or by them keeping the laws. But what happens is this, and I believe this is what the reason for the angst against the Noahide laws really are. Here we have these God's laws for humanity that everyone agrees is wonderful. But the minute you call them Noahide laws, now all of a sudden panic sets in. And it's like, oh no, those are mentioned in the Talmud. And so they can't be right. It's rabbinic. Well, I really believe those who are opposed to the Noahide laws really are just very anti-Semitic. That's what it comes down to. Because how can you be opposed to God's laws? I mean, if something is written in the Encyclopedia Britannica, if the Noahide laws are there, does that mean now we're opposed to Encyclopedia Britannica? Now, the same person, the reason I bring this up, I just found it interesting because at our office and personally, I've been getting all these emails because this one individual has posted a video. He lives in Israel, and he's totally come against me because get a load of this. You go to our website. We have all of these guest speakers. And do you see right here Rabbi Shlomo Riskin? How do you guys like Rabbi Shlomo Riskin? He was here one time in the history of El Shaddai at a night to honor Israel. Well, this person said, Pastor Mark Biltz was trained under the Noahide laws in Jerusalem under Shlomo Riskin. I saw him on his website. And it's like, what? You know, I mean, we have all kinds of people on our website. And, I mean, does that mean I've been trained under Bridget Gabriel? Was I trained under Bill Koenig? I know these people, but that doesn't mean I've been trained under them. Talk about fake news. And anyone who thinks that just because someone appears on our website, that means I'm either for or against the Noahide laws, or can make that assumption is really dumb. But anyway, I just so you know, in case